In 2001, Dr. Don C. Wiley was known as one of the top structural biologists worldwide. He held the prestigious position of John J. Loeb Professor of Biochemistry and Biophysics at Harvard University. Throughout his career, he made significant discoveries through his research. According to Ian A. Wilson, who worked with Dr. Wiley as his first postdoctoral fellow in 1977, each of Dr. Wiley's accomplishments would have been considered remarkable for any scientist's entire career. Dr. Wiley received numerous prestigious awards, such as the Japan Prize and the Albert Lasker Medical Research Award. Although his work delved into complex scientific areas, mainly focusing on the structures of viruses and proteins within the human immune system, its impact extended across various fields including cell biology, immunology, virology, and biochemistry, as noted by others in his field. Additionally, Dr. Wiley contributed his expertise to the Scientific Advisory Board of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. He regularly attended meetings of this advisory board, further highlighting his commitment to advancing scientific knowledge and its application in medical research and treatment. In addition to helping the hospital, this trip had personal benefits for Dr. Wiley as well. Dr. Wiley had been born in Ohio, but both his father and brother had moved to the greater Memphis area. So Dr. Wiley's family would join him in Memphis from their home in Massachusetts at the end of the annual meeting to spend time with the family. Dr. Wiley attended a dinner to mark the end of the advisory board's annual meeting at the historic Peabody Hotel. After dinner, Dr. Wiley went to the hotel bar to continue socializing and listened to a pianist playing in the hotel lobby. According to the bartender, Dr. Wiley ordered 2 drinks while he was there, but then switched to sparkling water. Dr. Wiley told the bartender that he was switching to a non-alcoholic drink because he would be driving back to his father's home where he had been staying. At the end of the night, the precise time Dr. Wiley left the Peabody that night is not known, but it was sometime around midnight on November 16th. At 3:47 a.m. that morning, a trucker called 911. There was a car blocking traffic on the Hernando de Soto Bridge, which carries Interstate 40 over the Mississippi River and connects Memphis, Tennessee with West Memphis, Arkansas. For more calls, reporting the car would come in the next 15 minutes. There is no real shoulder on the bridge, so the stopped car was blocking a lane and posing a safety hazard. When police arrived on the scene, they discovered a white 2001 Mitsubishi Galant with a full tank of gas, its keys still in the ignition, and no driver to be found. It was missing its right passenger side hubcap, and it had streaks of yellow paint on the rear driver's side bumper. Police estimated that the car could only have been on the bridge for 15 minutes at most. Given the fact that it was disrupting traffic and quickly generated numerous 911 calls, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, the Hernando de Soto Bridge is still heavily traveled. The city of Memphis is a major logistics hub. It is home of the world headquarters of FedEx and one of the largest cargo airports in the United States. The city also has 5 Class 1 railroads and a port on the Mississippi River. Freight is continuously coming in and out of the city. There may not have been commuter traffic on the bridge at 4 in the morning, but there would certainly have been plenty of trucks using it to come and go from Memphis. The Galant had misery plates, and police soon learned that it was part of the Avis rental car fleet. It had been signed out at the Memphis International Airport to Dr. Don Wiley of Cambridge, Massachusetts. When Dr. Wiley's wife received the phone call informing her that her husband's car had been found abandoned, she was already at Logan International Airport with her 2 children, waiting to board a plane to Memphis. Dr. Wiley had been married twice and had a total of 4 children, 2 from each marriage. His current wife, Katrin Waldstater, was flying into Memphis with their 2 children, ages 10 and 7, to spend time with Dr. Wiley's family. As was the family's custom after Dr. Wiley finished his meeting of the Scientific Advisory Board. Dr. Wiley was supposed to pick his family up at the airport that day, and they had plans to visit Graceland. Dr. Wiley's case was initially treated as a missing persons case. The detectives assigned to it feared that Dr. Wiley had jumped off the Hernando de Soto Bridge. Those who knew Dr. Wiley were quick to dismiss this theory. Dr. Wiley's brother Greg called the theory completely inconceivable. Witnesses who had been at the dinner on the 15th said that Dr. Wiley had been happily talking about long-term plans, like the trip he was taking to his wife's native Iceland over Christmas, as well as short-term plans, like the jog he was going to take in the morning. That evening, Dr. Wiley had no marital or financial problems or any history of mental health problems. The river was searched, but nothing was found. When Dr. Wiley's body was not found in the river below the bridge, his case was transferred from the Missing Persons Department to the Homicide Bureau. The case was transferred on November 20th. It had rained heavily in Memphis on November 19th, eliminating any potential forensic evidence that may have been left on the bridge by the time the Homicide Bureau opened its investigation. The missing hubcap from Dr. Wiley's rental car was never found. There was yellow paint on several construction signs near the bridge, but no damage corresponding to that on the car's bumper was found on any of the structures in the area. Both of these facts indicated that the car may not have received the damage it had sustained in the immediate area of the bridge. 5 weeks after Dr. Wiley was last seen, on December 20th, 2001, a crane operator at the Murray hydroelectric plant was pulling logs out of the Mississippi River. The plant was located outside of Vidalia, Louisiana, more than 300 miles downriver from Memphis. The crane operator suddenly noticed a body in the river amongst the logs. The Concordia Parish Sheriff's Office was called and investigators went out on a boat to retrieve the body. The body was still covered by clothes, and in one of the pockets was a wallet containing Dr. Wiley's identification, credit cards, and some cash. Unaware of Dr. Wiley's disappearance out of Memphis, the sheriff's office first called police in Cambridge, Massachusetts, based on the address on the identification. They also contacted the FBI office in New Orleans, who knew to get in contact with the authorities in Memphis. The body was transported back to Memphis to be positively identified and autopsied. Using dental records, the body was quickly confirmed to be Dr. Wiley. The identification was made public on December 22nd, 2 days after his body was discovered. Dr. Wiley had just turned 57 a month before his death. The autopsy and investigation by the medical examiner's office would take several weeks to complete. On January 14th, 2002, Shelby County Medical Examiner, Dr. O.C. to announce his findings in Dr. Wiley's case. Dr. Smith ruled that Dr. Wiley had died following an accidental fall from the Hernando de Soto Bridge. Dr. Smith acknowledged that there was no way to definitively say what brought Dr. Wiley to the bridge that night or what exactly happened once he got there. Based on the autopsy and his examination of the bridge, however, Dr. Smith put forth a hypothesis that a physically impaired Dr. Wiley had been in 2 minor mishaps while driving, one of which damaged the back of the car and the other that took off the front hubcap. Dr. Wiley then stopped the car on the bridge to inspect the damage, even though it was minor. He stepped up onto the curb and was then blown over the railing of the bridge, potentially from a gust of wind, coming off a passing 18-wheeler. The curb on the bridge was only 8 inches wide. Dr. Wiley would have needed to stand on it to avoid being hit by oncoming cars, as there is no real shoulder on the bridge. He would have had to be standing close to the railing because the curb was so narrow. The railing only rose 43 inches above the roadway, and the curb was 10 inches tall. Based on Dr. Smith's measurements, when the 6 feet 3 inches Dr. Wiley was standing up on the curb, the top of the railing would have only hit him mid-thigh, approximately a foot below his center of gravity, making it possible for him to have fallen over it. Dr. Smith outright rejected the possibility that Dr. Wiley had jumped off of the bridge, in part due to the lack of indicators and stressors in his life. Physical indicators from Dr. Wiley's autopsy supported this assertion as well. Dr. Wiley's body had numerous fractures, but there were more on his right side than on his left, 22 versus 15. And they were in a pattern that indicated that Dr. Wiley had hit the water with his right side, which would be more consistent with an accidental fall. Then with an intentional jump with the feet going first. Dr. Wiley's autopsy was also inconsistent with those of other individuals who had jumped off the same bridge. In the previous autopsies he had performed on some of those individuals, Dr. Smith noted that they had all cleared a box beam 12 feet below the roadway that stuck out 38 inches beyond the main structure of the bridge, presumably due to the force of jumping. Dr. Wiley's breastbone was cracked at the spot that would have been right under the 3rd button of his dress shirt. When Dr. Wiley's body was found, the third button from his dress shirt was missing, but the stitching that had held it on was perfectly intact. To Dr. Smith, this indicated that it had been broken off rather than ripped off. He believed that Dr. Wiley's chest hit the box beam during his fall, which would mean that he did not have the force of a jump behind him. Dr. Smith estimated that Dr. Wiley's 135-foot fall from the bridge to the waters of the Mississippi River took 2.9 seconds. He hit the water with his right side at a speed of roughly 60 miles per hour. He died upon impact rather than from drowning. Dr. Smith made a major revelation at the press conference that greatly changed the context of Dr. Wiley's disappearance. Dr. Wiley had apparently suffered from what Dr. Smith described as an infrequent and poorly understood seizure disorder for several years. Dr. Wiley kept this disorder private, with only his immediate family and a small circle of friends knowing about it. He did not ever receive any medical treatment for this condition and tried to manage it himself. He had no formal diagnosis of this condition and took no medication to control it, with the mild episodes being more controllable, but the severe ones impacting Dr. Wiley's ability to drive. Dr. Wiley's widow has chosen to protect his privacy and not publicly speak about his condition. As such, the only information we have about this disorder comes from Dr. Smith, who learned about it from Dr. Wiley's wife, and spoke about it both at this press conference and in future press interviews. We do not have specific information about what these episodes entailed or what specific kind of seizures Dr. Wiley had. According to Dr. Smith, the episodes did seem to be brought on by alcohol, lack of sleep, or stress. Dr. Smith believed that all three of these variables could have contributed to Dr. Wiley's death. The toxicology report had not been completed at the time of the initial press conference, but Dr. Smith announced there that alcohol has been identified at levels suggesting impairment in the samples from the autopsy, so other tissues had to be used for testing. A sample taken from Dr. Wiley's chest cavity showed an alcohol level of 0.17%. If this had been Dr. Wiley's blood alcohol content when he was still alive, he would have been heavily intoxicated. However, alcohol levels tend to rise in the body after death due to fermentation and diffusion. According to Dr. Smith, this process makes it impossible to say exactly how much alcohol was in Dr. Wiley's system at the time of his death. I would defy any expert who would come up with a solid number that would adequately define what his true blood alcohol was at the time of the mishap, Dr. Smith said at the press conference. Based on Dr. Smith's findings and the lack of any physical evidence indicating foul play, the Memphis Police Department officially closed Dr. Wiley's case. Dr. Wiley's case was perplexing from the very beginning when his rental car was found on the Hernando de Soto Bridge. The fact that Dr. Wiley's car was found on the bridge was concerning not just because it was found on a bridge and because it was obstructing traffic, but because there is no reason for him to have been traveling in that direction. Not all of the reports on this case agree where Dr. Wiley's father's house was located, but the general consensus is that it was in the suburb of Germantown. One report puts it north of Memphis, and a few say it was in East Memphis. The unifying detail in all of these accounts is that Dr. Wiley had an approximately 20-minute drive to reach the house. It is not necessarily important which of these locations is accurate. The important thing to note is that they are all not in the direction Dr. Wiley was driving. East Memphis and Germantown are both east of the Peabody, and north of Memphis obviously means north of the Peabody. Dr. Wiley's car was found west of where he was last seen. No one has a solid explanation as to why Dr. Wiley was driving into Arkansas. Memphis Health Department spokesperson Brenda Ward has posited that Dr. Wiley may have intended to get on I-40 East and simply got on I-40 West by mistake. It is an easy error to make, she argued, for someone who is not familiar with the area and would be confused by all of the construction that had been going on at the bridge at the time. Problem with this explanation is that Dr. Wiley was familiar with the area. He visited Memphis frequently to see his family and was in that exact area of town at least once every year for the advisory board meeting, if not at other times during his trips to town. Dr. Wiley had been in Memphis just a month before his trip there in November 2001. Furthermore, this construction had been going on since the year before. An ongoing seismic retrofitting project began on the bridge in 2000. The bridge is within close proximity of the New Madrid seismic zone, and is being retrofitted to be able to withstand a 7.7 magnitude earthquake. The construction would not have been a surprise to someone who frequently visited the city, like Dr. Wiley. The most glaring mystery in this case is the missing time between when Dr. Wiley left the Peabody and when his car was found on the bridge. As previously stated, car could not have been on the bridge very long before it was reported to police because it was blocking traffic in a highly traveled area. The entrance to the Hernando de Soto Bridge is only 5 minutes away from the Peabody Hotel. In addition, the records from the rental car agency showed that the car had not been driven any more miles than the police could account for. If Dr. Wiley left the immediate area of the Peabody before driving to the bridge, it was either on foot or in a different vehicle. Given the fact that Dr. Wiley was an accomplished biologist with detailed knowledge about how, and he went missing during the fall of 2001, there were initial fears that he may have been abducted by individuals who wanted to use his extensive knowledge for nefarious purposes. The FBI took an early interest in the case, although they were never formally investigating Dr. Wiley's disappearance. According to William Warner, head of the FBI office in Memphis, the state of affairs in the United States at the time required them to entertain this possibility, even though it seemed remote. Dr. Wiley would not have been a good person to abduct for such purposes. While he studied viruses, he did not have access to samples of dangerous viruses or have the knowledge to grow them, as he only studied their component parts. I do not believe that this theory plays any part in this case. To be fair to the people who still hold this theory, though, his abductors would not necessarily have understood that Dr. Wiley lacked this knowledge. A Harvard professor who had won numerous awards for studying dangerous viruses would probably sound like someone who knew how to grow viruses to the average person without a scientific background. My main problem with this theory is that I do not believe that Dr. Wiley would have ever been released by his abductors if the scenario occurred. I also believe that the physical evidence indicates that he did fall from the bridge. Since he was alive when he went over the railing, his abductors would have had to drug him with something that would not show up on the toxicology report and then hoist him over the railing. While Dr. Wiley could have fallen accidentally within a few seconds of stopping his car, it would have taken multiple people, a few minutes, and an additional vehicle to get an unconscious 6 feet 3 inches Dr. Wiley over the railing. It is hard to imagine that none of the truck drivers passing by on the bridge would have seen this. The same problem arises if Dr. Wiley had been knocked over the railing. While fighting off his abductors, the altercation would most likely have been witnessed by a passing driver. Furthermore, the force of a push off the bridge may have caused Dr. Wiley to clear the box beam under the bridge on his way down to the river. Overall, I am accepting of the conclusion that Dr. Wiley died in an accidental fall. However, I still question how exactly he got to the bridge and what happened in the 4 hours prior to the fall. I also have concerns with some of the conclusions Dr. Smith arrived at, or at least believe that they add new layers to the mystery rather than take them away, if they are correct. While I agree with Dr. Smith that we will probably never know exactly what happened to Dr. Wiley in the moments leading up to his death, I do have some concerns about some of the conclusions he reached. I am most concerned by Dr. Smith's assertion that Dr. Wiley had enough alcohol in his system to be impaired at the time of his death. We know, based on eyewitness testimony, that Dr. Wiley consumed alcohol on the night of November 15th. However, we also know based on this testimony that he did not drink to excess or become visibly intoxicated. He also switched to a non-alcoholic drink before leaving the hotel to allow some time for his body to process the alcohol he had consumed before he began driving. At this point, I have to make some assumptions to fill in some details and make my own calculations, which I want to make very clear could very well be faulty and are decidedly not exact. To estimate Dr. Wiley's level of intoxication on the night of November 15th, I am believing the bartender's report that Dr. Wiley had 2 alcoholic drinks and that he was in a good mood, but not overly intoxicated. I am placing his final drink before switching to something non-alcoholic 1 hour before he left the Peabody, which would make it at 11 p.m. I do not know the exact amount of food and wine Dr. Wiley consumed at the banquet earlier in the evening, which is a major variable to have missing. Dr. Wiley's weight has not been publicly revealed, but he was 6 feet 3 inches. He appears to have a slight build in most of the publicly available pictures of him. So for my calculations, I am assigning him a weight of 160 pounds, which is on the lower end of the healthy weight range for a man of that height, according to the National Institutes of Health. There are a wide variety of factors that impact blood alcohol content, but based on the information we have, I am estimating that Dr. Wiley's blood alcohol content when he left the Peabody around midnight would be 0.05, the approximate value provided on this chart. This level would make him impaired, but not legally intoxicated. If this number is correct and Dr. Wiley's BAC dropped at the approximate standard hourly rate, his BAC would have been back to zero by 3:47 a.m. when his car was discovered on the bridge. Based on Dr. Smith's statement that alcohol levels go up in a person's body after they die, it makes sense that alcohol will be detected in his system at his autopsy. I do not know how much longer alcohol remains in tissue rather than in the blood, so there could have been a fair amount of alcohol left in Dr. Wiley's body. However, given the amount of time it took to find Dr. Wiley's body, even a small amount of alcohol left in his tissues would have had time to ferment and show up in the larger amount found at the time of his autopsy. Dr. Smith, however, was convinced that the levels found during the autopsy were high enough to have caused impairment in Dr. Wiley at the time of his death. By his own admission, though, there is no way to know for sure exactly how much alcohol he had in his system at the time. It seems unlikely, then, that Dr. Smith can be certain that Dr. Wiley was impaired by alcohol at the time of his death. Based solely on Dr. Smith's own statements at the press conference, I am inclined to believe that Dr. Smith overstepped in making this assumption. I do not have a medical background, however, so I cannot completely discount the possibility that Dr. Wiley did have enough alcohol in his system to impair his behavior. If this is true, it opens up two main possibilities. Either Dr. Wiley died closer to the time he left the Peabody, or he went somewhere else and consumed more alcohol after he left the hotel. Given the amount of time that had passed between when Dr. Wiley died and when his body was found, his exact time of death cannot be determined. So he theoretically could have died closer to midnight, rather than 4 a.m. However, this would mean that someone else staged the scene on the bridge several hours after Dr. Wiley fell, as again we know that the car was not on the bridge until closer to 4 a.m. Someone who was not responsible for Dr. Wiley's death, but was aware of it somehow, could have staged the scene with his rental car. But that begs the question of why and of how they had his rental car. It would not have been impossible for Dr. Wiley to walk less than the mile from the Peabody to the bridge and then fall from it. Someone else then theoretically could have driven the rental car to the bridge to ensure that Dr. Wiley's fall was discovered. But what would their motive be to bring attention to the accident, but not report it? How would they have gotten the car key? And most importantly, how would they have known that Dr. Wiley fell from the bridge? The only real scenario in which this works will be if someone from the conference took Dr. Wiley's keys from him because they thought he was too intoxicated to drive, and Dr. Wiley then took off on foot. He then began walking across the bridge to Arkansas and fell off of it. There would be no way for the people back at the hotel to know that Dr. Wiley fell off the bridge. However, even if they did somehow learn that it had happened, it is curious that they wanted the accident to be discovered enough that they drove the car to the bridge, but not enough that they simply reported it to police. The possibility that Dr. Wiley made a stop on his way back to his father's house and consumed additional alcohol closer to 4 a.m. seems a lot more likely. However, no witnesses have ever come forward to say that they met with Dr. Wiley that night, or that they saw him at a bar or a liquor store. Dr. Wiley was not known to have a problem with alcohol, so it seems unlikely that he would stop for another drink, just for the sake of having another drink. If he did make another unknown stop that last night, it would most likely be because he was meeting with someone. Dr. Wiley had a full day with his wife and youngest children planned on August 16th, which makes me wonder what could have been so important to Dr. Wiley that he would be willing to stay out until 4 a.m., knowing he had a full day of commitments ahead of him. We know that Dr. Wiley, because of the mileage on his rental car. Furthermore, if he had enough alcohol in his system to physically impair him and cause him to have 2 minor traffic incidents as he got onto the bridge, as Dr. Smith has asserted, his driving would probably have been erratic. He would have been incredibly lucky if he did not pass a police officer during these 4 hours, especially in the area of town he was in. If Dr. Wiley had been on foot, he still would probably have attracted notice, either because of his impaired behavior or his formal dress. Still in his clothes from the banquet, he was decidedly overdressed for the bar and nightlife scene he was so close to. No witnesses came forward with a report of a lone man in a fancy suit when police were appealing for information, while Dr. Wiley was missing. Dr. Wiley's unspecified seizure disorder could have played a role in this missing period of time. While many people are only familiar with tonic-clonic or grand mal seizures, in which the affected individual shakes uncontrollably and loses consciousness, there are in fact quite a wide variety of different types of seizures. Other types of seizures can cause muscle weakness, muscle stiffness, uncontrollable tics, and the experiencing of sounds and smells that are not real. In absent seizures, the patient cannot respond or react for several seconds, often staring blankly into space and not remembering the experience. Seizures are complicated and can have drastic and complex effects on human behavior. Some types of seizures could explain why Dr. Wiley fell off the bridge, since a sudden change in his muscle tone while he was standing near the railing could have sent him over it. Other types of seizures, or perhaps their aftermath, could explain why he was unaccounted for almost 4 hours. He may have been left disoriented following a type of seizure that impacted his level of consciousness, but not necessarily his motor function. Without specific information about what happened to Dr. Wiley during his episodes, it is hard to say what impact they could have had on the final hours of his life. It is easier to imagine how they could have impacted his final few minutes. Perhaps Dr. Wiley could feel a major episode coming on, possibly clued in by the fact that he was driving somewhere he shouldn't be, away from his father's home. This would be almost the only reason why stopping the car in the middle of the busy road would have actually been a smart move. An unnamed friend of Dr. Wiley's hypothesized, to Doug Most of Boston Magazine, that Dr. Wiley may have gone over to the railing to vomit. Nausea can be a side effect of certain types of seizures. Personally, this scenario seems like the most logical account of the doctor's final moments. However, it does not answer all of the questions that linger in this case. Even if we accept Dr. Wiley's death as the simple yet unusual accident that it appears to be, the missing 4 hours remain a mystery, and that mystery still bothers me. Again, I don't believe that there was necessarily foul play involved in this case, or that Dr. Wiley was held and interrogated for his knowledge of the structure of viruses by individuals with evil intentions during those 4 hours. I do, however, believe that there is a missing piece of this story. There are multiple plausible explanations for why Dr. Wiley fell from the Hernando de Soto Bridge, but there are almost no plausible explanations for what happened during those missing 4 hours based on the information we currently have. While Dr. Smith is correct in that there is no way for us to find out if it was alcohol, a seizure, or a passing truck that sent Dr. Wiley over the railing of the bridge, it seems conceivable that we could one day find out where Dr. Wiley was during that elusive missing time. This is not to suggest that the police in Memphis did not adequately investigate where Dr. Wiley was during this time. They seem to have done all they could, publicly appealing for witnesses, investigating the mileage on the car, and collecting and reviewing surveillance footage. If we ever do get more information about where Dr. Wiley went after leaving the Peabody, it will most likely be the result of a new witness coming forward. Dr. Wiley spent his life investigating life below even its cellular level, solving mysteries, and benefiting the scientific and medical communities. His death, however, created large lingering mysteries in addition to the pain his loss caused his family and friends. Hopefully one day, a different kind of investigator will be able to answer these final nagging concerns about Dr. Wiley's final hours. What do you think about it? Tell us your thoughts in comments below. Let's continue.